This is Chicago's very own WGN News at 9.
Good evening, I'm Micah Mater.
And I'm Ray Cortopassi. We begin tonight with the continuing coverage of our breaking news.
Since the attack on our Capitol, the Department of Justice has remained committed to ensuring accountability for those criminally responsible for what happened that day. This case is brought consistent with that commitment.
Donald Trump now facing his third indictment. He's now charged with 4 felony counts related to efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Tonight, politicians across the political spectrum are sharing their reactions.
And WGN's Dana Rebick is joining us now with those details. Dana?
Well, this 45-page indictment was unsealed earlier tonight in U.S. District Court in D.C., and we are hearing reaction from Trump's campaign and both political parties on what they feel this means for the former president's future.
Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding.
The 4-count indictment and third criminal case against Trump accuses the former president of trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election by carrying out conspiracies in an effort to remain in power. Investigators say Trump and his allies created a national atmosphere of mistrust and anger fueled by lies, which eroded the public faith and, in turn, led to the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol.
The attack on our nation's Capitol on January 6, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies.
I even become frustrated with, no pun intended, but what I believe to be trumped up charges.
Downstate Republican Darren Bailey, who lost the Illinois governor's race and is now running for Congress, says he feels the Republican base is becoming frustrated with what he called a political witch hunt against Trump.
This is truly meant to stop President Trump from being president again. And I think that's the very reason the people are starting to wake up and see this. And I think it's going to help usher him into another term.
There's a good 35% of the public, no matter what happens, no matter what the facts are, they're going to support the former president. The question is, all they've done so far is to say this is a witch hunt, this is election interference, throwing stones and name calling. But these are specific things. So they have to get to decide either I didn't do that, and many of which were done publicly, so they're not going to be able to have that, or if I did it, it wasn't illegal.
Trump's campaign tonight saying, quote, "These un-American witch hunts will fail, and President Trump will be reelected to the White House so he can save our country from the abuse, incompetence, and corruption that is running through the veins of our country at levels never seen before. 3 years ago, we had strong borders, energy independence, no inflation, and a great economy. Today, we are a nation in decline. President Trump will not be deterred by disgraceful and unprecedented political targeting." Former Vice President Mike Pence, who announced his campaign for president earlier this summer, released this statement tonight saying, "Today's indictment serves as an important reminder. Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States." And U.S. Senator Dick Durbin saying, quote, "No man, not even a former president, is above the law. The anger and resentment Donald Trump stoked with his big lie put the country at a half step away from a constitutional crisis, led to a deadly insurrection on January 6, 2021, and left an embarrassing stain on our nation's history." Now, several unnamed co-conspirators are referenced in this indictment. We know that those include several attorneys as well as someone from the Justice Department and a political consultant. We don't know, obviously, the names of those people. We do know Trump will be in court to face these charges on Thursday.
All right, Dana, thank you. Here's some of the other indictments that Donald Trump is facing. A special counsel, Jack Smith, is also investigating him for illegally keeping top secret documents, charging Trump with 40 counts of retaining classified information, obstructing justice, and making false statements. Some of the alleged documents include information on nuclear capabilities, and that trial date is set for May 20th, 2024.
And the other indictment Trump is facing related to hush money scheme in New York. It relates to payments made to adult film actor Stormy Daniels to bury allegations of an extramarital affair. He pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records, and Trump is due in state court on that December 4th.
And there is also a grand jury investigation in the state of Georgia. It's tied to efforts he allegedly made to overturn the 2020 election there. The case hinges on a phone call he made to its Secretary of State, where he asks him to find just enough votes to overturn his narrow loss there. An indictment could come this month.
And so, joining us now for more analysis, Mark Fisher from the Washington Post, where he is a senior editor.
Good evening, Mark. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Thanks for joining us. Trump's attorney saying tonight this is an attack on free speech. How can they use that as a defense? Because they're not attacking, the indictment doesn't say anything about free speech. It's about him stealing the election.
Yeah, his argument is that back in the end of 2015, as he was wrapping up his campaign, that he was out there at the end of 2019, as he was wrapping up the 2020 campaign, he was out there telling people that this was a rigged election, and that he believes he had the right to do that. He had the right to question the sanctity of the election, the accuracy of the election count. And so his argument is going to be a free speech one, that you're criminalizing speech by saying that he was wrong to lie. Now, the government has, and this 45-page indictment makes for fascinating reading because it's a litany of examples of the people in Trump's own circles, his own employees, his own advisors, who repeatedly told him that he'd lost the election, that he had no legal path to overturning it, and yet he insisted on doing what he knew was wrong. And so the kernel of the government's case is that Trump knew he'd lost, knew what he'd done was wrong, and yet went ahead and misled his followers despite that.
And Mark, the Post got into the co-conspirators who were not indicted. In your reporting, do you have a sense of why that is? Is it so that they might testify against Trump down the road?
That is certainly one leading theory, that there is a hope among the prosecutors that people like Rudy Giuliani, the former New York City mayor, who was a legal advisor to Trump during that period, that he might testify perhaps against Trump in this case, which he has said that he would not do. Similarly, John Eastman, the legal scholar who came up with the theory of creating these alternative or fake groups of electors who would present themselves to Vice President Pence and say, here, we're the Trump electors, use us to overturn the election. Eastman also has not been terribly cooperative with prosecutors so far. They're hoping that that might change. And on through those six co-conspirators, allegedly. And so the question is, do they want to flip them, or do they just want to indict them later on and use this as the opportunity to focus on Trump himself?
And Mark, you're a newspaper guy internationally and nationally. What does this look like? What does it make us look like as the United States, having a former leader of the United States be indicted criminally 3 times?
It is not a good picture, and I think that's a nonpartisan statement. I mean, we have both tonight Democrats and Republicans saying that this is a very troubling development. This is unlike the previous indictments. This one is bigger than the documents case in Florida. It's broader than the New York case or the Georgia case that is likely forthcoming. This is something that makes us look to other countries as if we're the kind of country that we've always come to the rescue of, the sort of banana republic scenario where one government is fighting against the previous one. It's not a good look for Donald Trump. It's not a good look for our entire system because Trump will now argue that this is the Democrats coming after him politically. They, of course, deny that and say that everyone's being treated fairly and equally. But it turns a legal issue into a political one.
Mark, there was a poll, but just back in June, that showed 3 in 10 Americans still believe that Donald Trump lost the election because of fraud here. And then this previous indictment seems to have boosted his appeal as well here. You wrote about him in a biography. Why do you think that is, and where's it going to lead us?
Trump has mastered the art of presenting himself as someone who is fighting for the little guy who represents those who feel disenfranchised and frustrated. He's also mastered the art of martyrdom. He's already been out there saying, this is not the government coming after me, it's the government coming after you. And for those people who were attracted to him initially, I think this is a very strong argument. Obviously, for the majority of American people who have been opposed to him all along, it's alienating, it's mysterious, it doesn't make sense. So that's the clash that we have going on in our country from over the last several years. It continues now into this next election cycle. In Donald Trump's case, he will always resort to his lifelong belief that when you're under attack, what you must do is hit back harder. And so we're going to see now just what we've seen in previous legal cases he's involved in. Legally, his lawyers are going to say you need to argue that you didn't know what was going on. But he can't ever bring himself to say, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand it, the system or the process of the elections. So he's going to attack, and that will alienate his lawyers. This is why he goes through lawyers so frequently. That's very likely to happen again.
Mark Fisher, senior editor at Washington Post, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Be safe, be well. We'll have more updates on the Trump indictment ahead at 10 o'clock, including input from WGN political analyst Paul Lisnick. You can always read more at WGNTV.com. Get breaking updates through our WGN News app.